Welcome, everybody. My name is Jill Jonathan. I'm with Red, Wine, and Blue. We're a community of women who use digital media and friend-to-friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. I'm hosting this next author series with Jo, as in JoJo from Jers. And then we have two very special guests today, Jenny Klion and Stephanie Allain. They wrote a book together. They've been friends for 40 years, which is very exciting. And their book is for children, but listen, there's a bigger theme here that we all need to be talking about, and it's called Who's in Charge? So first off, could one of you just tell us about the book and why you worked together to write this?
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here.
We love Red, Wine, and Blue. And thank you also for all the work you do building community with women. It's very important.
It is, especially during this election cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we need it. We need democracy. We need freedom. And our book, Who's in Charge, is really our contribution to the conversation. So thank you for having us. The book started because during the pandemic, I had a granddaughter. And Kiala was born literally April 2020. And so nobody could see her for almost a year because, everybody was in their pods, right? And when we finally brought her out, people went in on her, touching her, kissing her, tickling her. And she just put up her hands like, hold up. Who? I don't know you. She was very confident. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, she already has body autonomy at 1 year old because she wasn't accustomed to, like, when you're born, you're just sitting there, you can't do anything. And people go in and you kind of get used to people touching you, right? She didn't have that. So I thought, wow, that is really special. And then meanwhile,
during my pandemic experience, like a lot of people, I did a lot of soul searching and realized that I had been sexually abused when I was very young. So, of course, I called Stephanie.
This is like, we talk, it's crazy. We've been friends since college. And for most of that time, we did live together after school, but then we've been living on separate coasts. I'm in LA, she's in New York, but we talk all the time, right? And so she called me with this revelation, and I was like, oh my God. And I tied it in immediately to Kiala's experience, understanding that she was in charge. And it was like this aha moment, right?
That we realize that kids need to know from the get-go that they're in charge of their bodies and personal space.
And I have been reading all these books to my granddaughter, picture books, and there was nothing like it. Like, nobody was saying from the beginning, you're in charge of your body, right? So I called Jenny. What's that, Jenny?
We decided to write it. I mean,
that's right. We decided to write it, and we wanted to be the change we wanted to see, right? Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't even that difficult. It was just we were in the flow of grace with this book, and it literally came together. We had some back and forth. We gave it to our agent. They loved it. Candlewick showed up. They loved it. And when you're in the flow of grace, it's the zeitgeist, right? So it's kind of no surprise that this book is coming out right now. And that's what we're really excited about, because the message is we're in charge of our own body, not some guy.
Not some guy. And it was all very organic, what she said. And now, bringing it back to the present moment, here we are in this existential battle about who has the control or the right to make choices about our own bodies. And that's what this book's is, that we are in charge. And we realize if you start young, like her granddaughter Kiala, before she can even speak, then we're thinking there's less of a chance that bullies can have their way, because this is not even part of the vocabulary anymore. Mm-hmm. And so we want to help preempt the Me Too before it happens.
That's our plan. And I wanted to just stop and shout out our amazing illustrator, Melissa Valdez. She also illustrated Ambitious Girl, Mina Harris's book. Hello, Harris. And it just brought this childlike quality to the book. And what I love, our book is right behind us. These kids are all the same color, but they're all different. You know what I mean? And just that notion of bringing us all together. So she's a huge part of the book, and we're really super excited that she, collaborated with us to make it.
Well, the illustration that I see is absolutely beautiful, and congratulations on the book, and congratulations on your granddaughter, who's got to be what, 5, 4 now. Yeah. And Jenny, I'm sorry for what happened to you. Truly, I understand a little bit about that, but I'm curious so much about this because these are conversations that we have been discouraged from having, and certainly as someone who's 50 years old, I was discouraged from having these kinds of conversations. And I was also discouraged from speaking up and saying, no, I don't like that. I don't want you to tickle me. I don't want a hug. Like it was that you're being rude, you're being disrespectful. I remember that from a very young age. I was like, oh, my Uncle John was very touchy and I didn't like it. And I was, told not to say, like, don't do that. But I think well, obviously that makes it crucially important that we're having these conversations now, and that you have a book that is on a children's level, because it starts, like you said, from a very young age where we're either taught that we have to accept touches that don't feel good. We can say, no, I don't like that. I'm curious, and thank you for doing that. How do you do that in the book? Like, what's the vehicle other than the beautiful illustrations? Like, how do you teach that lesson?
Well, number one, the refrain, who's in charge? I am. We really want to ingrain that. And that's why the book is repetitive like that. Who's in charge of your nose? I am. Who's in charge of your eyes? I am. Who's in charge of your thighs? I am. So I think just reinforcing that, and it's amazing because we've done a couple book readings and the kids get it right away. They're like, I am. And that sense of empowerment. It's great. And we went one step further because you're right. So many times people think that they can invade your space, especially especially girls, but boys too, right? So we're thinking like, how can we amplify this message? And so I'm married to an amazing songwriter, composer. We're like, let's make a song, right? Because a song is something fun and catchy. So we wrote a song. I don't know if you guys got it, but like this song is the book, but on steroids and super fun. So that's another way to sort of reiterate we are in charge. And I think kids, so my Kiala had a baby sister. And what's so interesting, the other day they were over and the baby sister, Rayla, was upset about something. And Kiala looked at her and said, can I give you a hug? And she said, no. And she said, okay. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, Lord, this is the new generation where you understand that you can't just jump in. You have to ask. And I think if we can continue this conversation, we can change the world. I mean, this is fundamental.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I have 2 children myself, and I have tried they're 15 and 13 now, but I've tried very hard at a young age. You have the right to say no. And guess what? You have the right to say no to me, your mom. Right. If I come in and want to give you a hug and you don't want it, you tell me no. And so I'll be honest, as a mom, that could be a little hard, especially now with the teenagers who do not want to be hugged or anything like that. But it's like teaching at such a young age, because a lot of us who weren't really taught about that, as we get older and as women, we're just taught to be pleasing, not to hurt anybody's feelings. And so it does get a little like, it's harder, like as a woman, to be like, well, I don't really want to do that, but I don't want to ruffle any feathers. So I just want to talk more about, bodily autonomy for women, which is really being attacked right now. I mean, we all know that. Can either one of you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wrote down, because I was so impressed with what that judge said yesterday. Can I just read it? This Georgian judge said, "It's not for a legislator, a judge, or a commander from Handmaid's Tale to tell these women what to do with their bodies during this period when the fetus cannot survive outside the womb, any more so than society could or should force them to serve as a human tissue bank or to give up a kidney for the benefit of the other." That I was so happy when I read that, because we say, oh my God, we're living in Handmaid's Tale, right? These draconian rules from the 1800s that these men are reinforcing, and some women, to be honest, it's got to stop. You know, the fact that our mothers did not have the ability to control their own bodies, but we did, and our children won't. No, that's just absolutely not right.
And so much of that is foundational. Like so much of that is like what you're addressing. So much of that comes from that very early age where the men are getting the same messages as we are. They're getting the same messages that are, I can do what I want. I can do what I want with your body. Your body is not your choice. It's not up to you. I can decide for you.
And
that's what Jenny was saying.
Yeah, this is what they're running for president on. We are doing this, and you need to not be in charge. But this is how this repetition, it's ingrained into your body, that this is what I meant when I said it's just not going to be part of the conversation anymore. It's almost like, 10 or 15 years from now, you'll look at them, what are you talking about? Which is kind of how I feel right now. It's almost laughable, particularly the people that are so engaged and, married to this idea that they're in charge are obviously the people that you least want to get near you.
And that's why in the book, in our author's note, we say, you're never too young or too old to know this message that you're in charge. And I think, Joe, you're absolutely right. We grow up with this people-pleasing thing. We don't want to speak up. I don't really like that. It's hard to say. And hopefully this book will enter into the conversation that absolutely wrong. Every individual is in charge of their own space, their own body, their own voice and choice. And it starts when you're really young.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that I really relate to in the book is almost the very first page. Color-wise, illustration-wise, it goes from black and white to full-on multicolor. And it's very exciting to see that development. But that first page of the group of kids who are in black and white, and they all just look like they're not in charge, or that someone else is telling them that they're in charge. They all look kind of under the weather, not happy. And so that's why when you look at this backdrop behind us, this is the cover, but this is the goal, not the black and white kids with the shadows all over their bodies.
Yeah. These kids are confident, they're empowered, and they're happy because of it.
And they've helped each other.
I love that, like talking about the black and white, because I think a lot of us have kind of grown up in that binary way of thinking. It either has to be this or that, very black and white. So like the colorful, I feel like just expands with like that new generation, that's coming up, that's, just more accepting and empowered. And, if you're even talking about like LGBTQ plus kids who are like, no, there's a spectrum. I'm trying to figure out like who I am. You don't get to tell me who I am. So I just think that's really beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And it really happened over this last generation. It happened really quickly. I see it with my kids. They're so free. They're so open and so accepting, like you said. And wow, what a beautiful thing. So I think, go ahead, Jen.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes you'll tell me about that, and then we'll have the conversation from the older days. Like, we didn't do that, or we didn't learn that, or where are they getting this from? And so that is our contribution.
My favorite thing, one of my favorite things is people coming out later in life. You know what I mean? I just saw Will and Harper, which is this Will Ferrell movie where his friend for 30 years at 65 just knows that he's a woman and transitions. And I was like, the kids gave him that confidence. You know what I mean? Like, that's a hard thing to do. And so it fills me up that freedom is accessible to all of us. And I just think that's super important.
And once you unlock something as basic as bodily autonomy in a child, once you unlock that freedom, that independence, it's sort of like starts checking all the other boxes, right? Where all those other things can start to come online and they feel safer exploring those independence, those other colors of them, right? Along the spectrum, as Jill said. And there's two things I wanted to say. First of all, this keeps kids safe and it will keep adults safer. You know, as an adult who walked through my life accommodating other people, largely men, you know, they're appropriate touches. I mean, I was a waitress and a guy put his hand on my butt while I was getting drinks at the service bar. And in my 30s, I just stood there. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even respond. And that's kind of that accommodation of abuse, really. If you have this already ingrained in them when they're so young, if I had these messages from this young age, I would have been like, you know, I would have said some things that I probably would say now at 50. But I also want to say, like, it's books like these and it's moments like these and it's this movement that we're seeing, like you said, this new generation. There's what we're also seeing, and I'm sure you've seen it, is that the pushback from the other side is as aggressive and as, if not more so, to sort of try and stomp down on this because they don't want this, because that is a threat to them.
Yeah. But that's exactly what happened. It happened when Obama was in the White House, right? We were like, wow, look at us, look at our country. And then we're like, oh God, here comes Trump, you know? But I think that's a sign that movement is happening, right? Because they're scared. They're scared, they're worried, they're draconian in their response to freedom and
they don't seem connected to their spouses, their families, their friends. It's all a lot of those people seem very on their own. And maybe there's some business handlers around them, but it doesn't look like a fun life. And it's not.
So our goal with this book is to get this book into schools, into libraries. We want people to gift this book to adults even, because, you know, we all need to learn this lesson, especially those of us, I'm 65 this month, really coming up in the 50s and 60s where, you know, there was a different world.
That it took me, because I'm a year older than Stephanie, and it took me this long to figure it out, because there aren't avenues, there aren't conversations. There are conversations, but, you know, it's not as, this is meant to be like an open invitation. And even though there are these people that are pushing back, you know, there's a power in group. There's strength and freedom in group and helping other people. And I think that this is a message that will do that. So we're very happy to share the message and all the work that we put in, you know, the book and the 40 years of friendship really paying off for us.
And I just want to talk about the power dynamic too, you know, what we're seeing here. And then, like, Stephanie, like what you're teaching your granddaughter at just like from day one, there's like, you are empowered when you understand that your body belongs to you and that you're in charge of it. So just like having that empowerment from an early age is just going to set you up so well. And I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here with trying to strip women away from their bodily autonomy. It's kind of like a power play where, like you said, like anytime you see progress, then people are going to start pushing back against it. Do either of you have any more to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the last vestiges of this old way. You know what I mean? And we, as the younger generation, I include myself because my mind is very young. We need to keep powering through. We need to keep, like Jenny said, in communion with each other. That's why Red, Wine, and Blue is so great, because you guys are out here getting all these women and men who love women. Let's not forget the men who love women. That's a big constituency. And I think we can overpower hate. I think we can overpower this sense that they're just scared of us. You know what I mean? Like, we create life. That's something that is very powerful. And the idea that they need to be in charge of that, they need to track periods. They need to know what that is beyond, but that's a sign that, you know, the freedom, the newness is coming. And, you know, they're going to have a hard time, because I think when people vote, they're going to vote for their freedom. I just don't see people voting to go backwards. I really don't.
No, I mean, if you look at these kids on the cover, they're not going to vote to have their periods tracked. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Right. But because I constantly think of them as sort of in the throes of extinction, and they see this, right? They know what's coming. They know that they can't just, you know, stop it entirely. This is evolution. This is how societies go. So one of the ways that they are trying in their desperation to sort of squelch all of this is through book bans. I mean, they are banning, you know, everything from the dictionary to books about Sonia Sotomayor. So, I mean, a book like this, they're going to be like, oh, this is one of those. They're grooming, indoctrinating, they're using kids, they're sexualizing. You know, they're going to say all of that stuff because that's what they do. I mean, they say that about Judy Blume books. Okay,
so look. I'd be proud to be a banned book, okay?
Because
books are the future.
But that's their veil.
Right.
Because this book can be read on many levels. And it's not, you know, if you're picking out sexuality, then that's what your concern is. You know, there's also just, you know, it's just kids learning how to be in touch with their body or be aware of their body, be happy about their body, all different types of bodies, which is one plus of the book. And so, yeah.
I think just talking about that too, because I mean, if you just like talk about bodies in general, of like how many people have like body image issues, like kind of in like this generation. And I'm just hoping that new generation, I'm trying really hard to, you know, raise my kids a certain way of like, your body is your body. It's beautiful. It is what it is, that kind of thing. So I think that too, like taking that ownership.
Yes.
I'm just so inspired by it. Like just all of it, just that empowerment of your body is your body. That's just what I keep thinking of.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
Yet so profound that, you know, it's like we're talking about it now. There should be a time when we don't even have to say this. You know what I mean? It's so obvious, but we're not there yet. So we're trying to do whatever we can to, as I said, contribute to this conversation, to let kids know and everybody know that, you know, it's fundamental to who you are, that you are in charge of your body. And that is the message, you know, that's the message of the book.
You said that you're trying to change the world. And I do believe the more I talk to you, the more we explore this, right? This is not conversations that you have every day, you know, that's a good thing. It's a great thing. When I really sit and think about this, the change is actually systemic. I mean, really think of all the systems we interact with every day, that our kids interact with, that we don't even think about, where this is sort of just the through line. This is how those systems got to be the way that they were. And by flipping that on its head and doing this little tiny simple thing, which is actually extraordinary, and telling someone from a young age, you don't have to accept all of that. All of those systems will change in response. I think it's amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. That was what our hope was.
Yep, you nailed it, Jo.
And I just want to, before we drop too. I just want to talk about the song. We were hoping we could play it on the live, but we couldn't figure out the technology. But I did listen to it on Spotify. I know you can get it on Spotify, but when I heard it, I was like, I was singing it in my head later. And I'm like, this is totally something I would play for my kids when they were younger. And just like that repetition and that song and just like that constant, it's almost like a mantra. So I'm just curious. Is when you wrote the book, did you have an idea of doing a song with it, or did that just come to you as you were writing it?
No, we did.
Afterwards, right?
You know, there's that Free to Be You and Me, Marlo Thomas, which was kind of the original.
We did talk about that. Yeah,
and so yeah, we thought the book, the song. There's also a video.
There's a lyric video which you can see on YouTube. Under Optimistic Baby, because this is the first in a series of things we want to do, because we think building optimistic kids is kind of the other secret to success, right? And so there's a music video, lyric video, where, you know, especially when kids are young and they're reading, they can sing the song and see the words. We're trying to figure out what else we can do to get the message out. You know, this is like no, really, it's a goal, it's a quest. It's like I was saying in the beginning, when you actually be the change you want to see, anything's possible.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking toys, dolls, games, clothes. I have a million thoughts right now.
I'm a movie producer. We need to have a little movie. We need a little TV show.
And it's all joyful. I mean, that's this moment, right? This moment that we are in right now is really this binary choice, right? Between the opening image in your book, which is black and white and gray and dark, and the rainbow explosion of happiness, optimism, joy. Like, that's the choice before us in this moment. And your book is meeting that moment perfectly.
Amazing. Yeah. And if you guys read the New York Times yesterday, the endorsement for Kamala, it was like, really, there is no choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice, you know?
Right.
So we've gone back.
We hope we can open some eyes and open some hearts and, you know, like I said, change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you both are just so joyful. I just feel incredibly inspired. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And I feel like this is just the beginning, it sounds like. So
thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Shout out to Red, Wine, and Blue. You guys are great. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining, and be sure to check out Red Wine and Blue at redwine.blue. We can get you connected with your people. That's what we're all about, connecting and building community. So thank you for joining. This will be saved on our YouTube channel. So be sure to share it with a friend. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.